Humbrecht with Humbrecht Law here, criminal and traffic defense attorney in Manassas, Virginia. Welcome to my weekly Facebook Live. Today I am joined by a very special guest, Gresham Harkless. Gresham is the founder and CEO of Blue 16 Media. He is a master at website design and SEO, all things SEO, social media. He also has a course that he teaches called You Are a Media Company, basically helping everybody who participates in the course come up with content to reach your ideal target audience, because a lot of us in business probably try to reach everybody, and that's not really always the best thing to do. But I am no expert, so I'm going to turn it over to Gresham now to tell everybody a little bit about who he is and what he does. And before I do that, I forgot that he was just recently accepted into the Alexandria Chamber of Commerce top 40 under 40. So congratulations to Gresham for that. So with that, Gresham, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Gene, definitely appreciate you having me on the show. Definitely appreciate you introducing me, and just wanted to kind of introduce myself to everybody. My name's Gresham Harkless Jr. And I have kind of two things I work on. It's Blue 16 Media and CB Nation. Blue 16 Media, we do web design and SEO for entrepreneurs and business owners, helping to increase the visibility of what it is that they do. And then I have CB Nation, which is just basically like a B2B brand. So there is loads of content to help out entrepreneurs and business owners. You get to hear and see the stories from entrepreneurs and business owners, and also like kind of learn how to do certain things, whether it be create a Facebook page or why you should be an LLC versus a C Corp. Just loads of content that basically helps, hopefully, entrepreneurs and business owners be more successful. And I'm a local guy, so I'm from the Woodbridge area. Right now I'm in Alexandria, Virginia. I went to school in DC, so I went to Howard University and Georgetown for my master's. So I've been around this area forever, as long as I can remember, and definitely, super excited about, helping out people as much as I can, and definitely excited to be on the show.
Well, awesome, Gresham. I'm very excited to have you here because I actually met you, I believe, at Coach Marvin Powell's roundtable lunch. That was where I think I first met you. And I was lucky enough to be a guest on your podcast. And then I also saw a presentation you did at the Small Business Grit Summit that we both spoke at. And I thought that presentation was just so awesome. I took out my pad and I was taking notes. There was so much good information in there. And I don't even know where to start. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start asking you questions. And by the way, everybody that's watching this, feel free to type in a question or a comment about anything that we say, and we can make sure that we try to get an answer for you while you're watching this. And if you like something, give us the thumbs up or the like or the wow. That's my favorite one, the wow face. So yeah, we are welcoming audience participation. So tell us where you are signing in from and let us know any questions you have. But the first thing, Gresham, I want to ask you, because I don't, know if everybody who's watching this really understands. Can you explain what SEO is and the importance of it?
Absolutely. And so SEO stands for search engine optimization. So basically what that means is when people are searching on search engines, they go to Google and try to find something, you basically can do a multitude of things to help increase the likelihood of you basically being there when people are searching. So a lot of people don't realize you can optimize a lot of different things, but search engine optimization focuses specifically on that. And what you're optimizing is your website. So you're basically making sure, I usually say that Google speaks a certain language. So you just think of it like a language like Spanish or French or something like that. What you're doing is you're translating your website, translating everything that you do for Google to understand. And a lot of times they don't see the website, they don't see the content like we do. So we have to do those extra steps, that optimization piece, to make sure that Google understands what the pages are and what services and products you have, your location, and all of those things. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, is that Google's really in the business of helping people to find what they're looking for as quickly and accurately as possible. So the more accurate you can talk about and show on your website and optimize your website to show what it is that you do in your location and things like that, it allows them to be used over and over again and continue to kind of be top of mind for people that are searching.
Okay. Okay. So it's not just having a website online. There's a lot more work that goes into it, right?
Absolutely. It's so funny you said that, because a lot of times I'll say if you build it, they won't come, because you have to actually market it as well too. So a lot of times think that even in business, like, once you say you're in business, the people will knock down the door to come try to talk to you. It's the same thing online. You put up a website, you have to actually do things to drive people to the website so that you can actually get those clients and customers.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you actually put it that way. You said drive people to the website. So besides that search engine optimization, or maybe you can go into a little more detail about how you drive people to your website.
Yeah. So when search engines figure out what website to show, or what ranking or actual thing to show, they take into account over 100 different kind of things. These things are everything from the how fast your website loads to what exactly your title tag and meta description say, and these are more back end things, to what the images say. So they take into account and they look at all these 100 plus factors and determine what's really a good result. So from an SEO perspective, what you're really trying to do is to, again, optimize your website, but there's things that are offline that Google takes into account to determine what your site is about, what exactly you do. So that is really been moving towards and will continue to move towards content. So whether that's, blogs, that's podcasts, whether you've been featured on podcasts or you've written a guest post on somebody else's site, when you have those links that go back to your site, it's all giving Google information about what it is that you provide. And on an even deeper level, every site is not equal. So if you've been featured on the Washington Post or the USA Today, that's way better than if I start a blog and call it Gresh's DMV blog that I just started yesterday. Yeah. It's going to hold a lot more reputation from having a post on that site versus having a post on a newer blog site. So understanding that they're not all equal, but the more activity you have, the more links you have going back to the site, the more content you produce, the more likely and more reputable your site and, of course, your company will be.
Okay. And how does social media relate to that? Because I know with your company, you do digital marketing and work with social media, right?
Yeah, so we focus on social media primarily as an activity level to SEO, because that's one of the ranking factors of SEO, is just having the activity on social media. And a lot of it, if you really think about it, what Google is kind of in the business of is user experience. So they want you to have a really great user experience. And if, for example, if you're really active on Instagram and you're really crushing it on Instagram and you have people coming to your site, they're really spending time there, they're engaging there, that's going to help you out from a search engine standpoint, because you're getting more traffic and information going there. And it's, again, having people understand that your site is reputable, you're providing really high quality, and that allows you to rank better from a search engine standpoint. And I think one of the biggest things from, social media, just generally speaking, is that people are already spending time there. So while we're trying to drive people to our websites, one of the best things you can do in order to do that is go to where people are, and you figure out who your target market is. You spend time there on whatever social media platform it might be, and then you have that opportunity to engage and hopefully drive people back to where you want them to go.
Wow, you just said so many things that I have questions about. But the first one, because it's recent in my mind, your target audience. How do you find out who your target audience is, and how do you find where they are?
Great question.
And then I'll get into all my other questions.
Okay, all right. No, that's a phenomenal question, and I think really what I usually have like 3 questions that I touch on that you should always ask yourself. And that will direct everything that you're doing in the target market slash avatar. And if you haven't heard of avatar, the idea about an avatar is you really paint the picture of the ideal person that you're trying to target. You know, their age, you know, if they're male and female, you know, what type of food they like, you know, what their interests are, you know, all of this information. And the reason that that's important is it's going to direct what platforms you're going to be on, also what content you'll create, because the idea of social media, the idea of everything you're doing is trying to have a conversation, a connection with the people that you're trying to target. And if you don't know that, then you kind of are just kind of shooting everywhere, and you don't have that targeted strategic approach. And I think one of the best ways that I've found that you can do that is, especially if you've been in business for a while, you have an idea of who your best clients have been. And I would say if you've been in business for a while, really start there. Those people and that person that you want to continue to come through the door over and over again, paint a picture. You understand exactly how you got connected with them. You understand exactly the things that they were looking for, their pain points. You know where they spent time as far as like social media sites. You know the types of ways you can communicate with them. And I think that's one of the best ways to do that. If you're a little bit of a newer business, then of course you may not have that data, but understand that that market research, so to speak, is available. You know, you can do a lot of research with different sites. Like you can go to SBDC. They have a lot of information as well too, to kind of drill down in your market, but understand that it's a constantly it's a consistent thing that you have to research and kind of have that activity top of mind, and also understand that a lot of these target markets are evolving and changing. So what might be of interest today may not be of interest, you know, tomorrow, 3 years down the line. And you always want to kind of be dialed in so that you're able to kind of be ahead of the curve.
Okay. Well, that's really good information. You said SBDC. Can you tell everybody what that stands for?
Yes, it's the Small Business Development Center. So I'm in Alexandria, and actually was granted the opportunity to go through the an Alexandria Amplify program, which was basically through the SBDC. There's loads of free or very low cost services that help out business owners. So if you're not available, you're not aware of that, you probably have one that's local to wherever you live. I think we have at least 3 or 4 here in the Northern Virginia area and in DC. But again, there are a slew of resources, networking events, classes, experts that provide their services free, if not as close to free as possible.
Okay, awesome. You also mentioned, you know, trying to find your target audience, your ideal client, I guess. And can you kind of explain to everybody what the importance of that is? Because some of us might be thinking, you know, if I'm marketing towards this particular person, I could be losing all this other business.
Right. And if you've ever kind of gone through like Facebook ads and Facebook advertising, you understand like you can really drill down tremendously to connect with your target market. So the reason that is so important is because you want everything you do to speak to that target market. But even more important, probably from a business standpoint, is it's very, very expensive to try to market to literally everybody. It's also very, very difficult to kind of break through the noise if you are trying to market through everybody, because you really want your ideal client to understand, speak to, and have that engagement with what you're putting out as far as content, videos, imagery, whatever that might be. But there's a tremendous kind of savings you can have because you're not trying to target to everybody else. You're not, and when I say savings, I'm talking about resources. So we're talking about time, we're talking about money. It's a lot more expensive and a lot more time inefficient to be and master every single social media site versus the one that you know that your target market is going to be. And it's even more expensive to do advertising on all those different social media sites. And even the biggest organizations and businesses, they do have a budget by which they're targeting, by which they're doing marketing efforts. So it's important to kind of drill down as much as possible. And you don't necessarily just have to have one. But it's important to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and be very strategic with every action you're taking.
Okay. That's actually a really good point. Understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and being very strategic, because there are so many things out there that we could do. And I mean, you do a lot of things, but I'm sure you don't do everything, because, you know what works for you, right? You have a podcast, you have a blog, and well, I can let you tell everybody about that. And I don't know off the top of my head what all your different social media platforms are, but we could all be on everything. So, how do we determine, what we should really focus on? Because whether we're doing it ourselves or paying for it, it's going to take time and or money. So how do you hone down on where you should focus, in terms of podcasts or a video series or, a blog or, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest? I mean, there's so many things. So how do you figure it out?
Yeah, absolutely. And a partridge in a pear tree or two, right? So there's like so many different things that you can definitely do. And I always go back to kind of picking one or two things that you can really focus on. And I think one of the biggest things that I usually say is that it's okay. And I would even recommend experimenting and testing. And it's okay to create a Facebook group just to see, even though your target market is not there, maybe it will resonate with your target market. Because I think so many times people will copy what other people are doing, hoping to have success, when in reality, it's those quote unquote trailblazers that test out this idea, and then they see that engagement happen. And then they, create a course, or they create a book, or they hop on a Facebook Live with Gene, and they say, this is what I did. And by that time, everybody's doing it. So it's very important to kind of it's important that you have room to kind of experiment a little bit. So you want to have and know that I'm going to master this, and maybe I have one or two others that I'm going to experiment with, just to test out to see how engaging they are. But like I said, the three things I go back to are, what are your resources that are available to you, whether you're hiring somebody or you're doing it yourself, your time or your money, who's your target market, understanding that if they don't listen to podcasts, then it very well may not be worthwhile to have a podcast, or at least invest heavily in a podcast in the very beginning. And then, like, what does success look like? Like, are you trying to get on more podcasts? Or are you trying to have direct consumers come from your website? Do you want to write a book and promote your book? Just understanding what success looks like will determine what platforms you are, for how long you're on them, and whether or not you're doing something or anything else. It's just, I think those are the three questions that really we always have to check in on. Just like if we're cooking something in the oven, and just make sure that it's not overcooked, and make sure it's not burning. It's just exactly what you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, you made a good analogy before when we were talking, and I think in your presentation at the Small Business Grit Summit, about baking a pie. I'll let you tell everybody that, because I couldn't do the metaphor justice.
No worries. Yeah, I was touching on that. So like I say, like the way that you are a media company is as simple as sweet potato pie. So it's my absolute favorite dish. And it's funny, like what we were talking about is often when you're trying to create something, you're trying to bake a pie or whatever it might be, or any type of dish, you'll go to the grocery store, and then you'll see that there's tremendous amount of ingredients. There's so many things that you can put into the dish that you're making. But to be really strategic, you have to understand what you're trying to make, and you don't buy every single ingredient that you could in the grocery store. You pick and choose the one or two or whatever is in the recipe that's consistent with you getting that final result. But I think so many times in the grocery store, sometimes when we're hungry, but definitely on social media, we will hear that we need to be on TikTok because TikTok is the most upcoming thing. We'll hear that you need to have a podcast because everybody that's ever written a book has had their own podcast. But in reality, we really need to question those things and do the due diligence to understand if that's consistent with what success looks like, or if that's just something we are supposed to do because we hear that we should. So that's really a lot of what I talk about, is just creating that kind of 6-step process for how exactly you should go through figuring out why exactly and what exactly you should do to kind of reach those goals that you've created, not something that somebody else has created for you.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point, because there's so many people out there saying you should do this and you should do that and you should have a profile here and you should do this and you should write a book and you should have a podcast. You can't do everything. And if you do, I guess you're going to spend more time trying to do that than you are, doing your job that you're trying to market yourself for. And then I also thought of another analogy with your pie. You buy all these ingredients, but for baking, I'm more of a baker than a cook. So
Mm,
for baking, you have to follow it exactly, right? Like I
mhm.
don't want to say that if you go off course and change your mind, you'll end up baking something different. But like you have to have a plan, right? Or else all those ingredients that you bought and paid money for, it's not going to make what you planned on making, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think one kind of to tap onto that as well too is I think that there is kind of room for that experimentation. So sometimes if you go through and you add cinnamon to that thing that you're baking that no one else has in the recipe, that's your way of being and creating something that's unique. So the same thing when we're talking about digital marketing is yes, maybe your target market isn't there, but maybe you have a way to be that trailblazer and to put a little bit of quote unquote cinnamon into your marketing strategy, and all of a sudden you see that result happen.
Oh, I like that. Putting cinnamon into your marketing
There
strategy.
you go.
Yeah, cinnamon makes everything better.
There, very true.
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, there are. I don't want to ask too many specific questions, but I've just heard so many different things about the different platforms. I just was wondering if maybe you could tell everybody a little bit if there are any general comments you can make about the different social media platforms. I mean, I understand you said that a business owner, marketing person needs to know who their market is, but does any platform have any benefit over another, like LinkedIn,
Yeah.
Facebook?
Absolutely, yes. So I think Facebook is obviously the biggest social media platform. They also own Instagram. So just being aware of that is extremely important, and understand too that they probably have the most information and data about the people. So when you're thinking about advertising, you're really thinking about laser focusing on a specific target market. Understand that Facebook probably has an advantage over every other platform. But as we talked about with the target market, understanding that LinkedIn is more of a B2B kind of platform to use. So if you're in the B2B space, if you're working with business owners, or even if you're trying to network and connect with business owners, LinkedIn is a great place to do that. If you're trying to maybe target a younger demographic, maybe you're going to be more through TikTok or Instagram, which is still owned by Facebook, but again, it skews more towards a younger demographic. But TikTok is a perfect example of one of those kind of newer platforms where you want to, if you understand that maybe you like music, maybe you like creating videos, you're comfortable personally, if you're creating everything in terms of doing those things, TikTok might be a great platform for you, even if you do B2B, because maybe that's more in your zone of genius, so to speak. And maybe you're not using it as your primary way to drive traffic, but maybe you understand that, which is the case, that often the younger users will direct the paths of the older. So before someone's parents, so quote unquote, will be on a platform, the kids are usually on there. So if you understand that, you're not thinking short term, you're thinking you're going to do that for the long term. So it's just understanding those things, understanding there's going to be other social media platforms, but knowing that there's an incredible advantage for being a quote unquote first mover. So before everybody gets on those platforms, there's a kind of time that you can really, really start to engage. You can really start to get your name out there, largely by doing that. But I'm a real big proponent of making sure that you're trying to drive people to a way that you can kind of connect with them outside of these social media platforms, because we don't actually own those platforms. Their algorithms change. They change just as much as Google's does. And understanding that you don't own that platform is one of the reasons that you want to try to drive people as much as possible. You want to engage with them there because that's where they're spending time, but understanding that there is a limit to what you can do as far as reaching out to them, because those algorithms and that organic reach on these platforms can change pretty much tomorrow, and it completely change the way that you're marketing and growing your business.
That's a really good point, and everything that you're talking about, I think, is really, I guess, what they would call evergreen content, right? All of this stuff always applies, but it's just that it might not be, TikTok might come and go, like MySpace doesn't even exist anymore. I think I have an old profile out there. I need to figure out how to get rid of it. But we don't know, how long these things are going to stay around, so, and we don't, I'm sure nobody knew how successful Facebook would be. So yeah, we don't know, but you made some interesting points about getting in on the ground floor when something is just starting. And then also, nobody has ever put it that way before. I try to attend a lot of trainings on social media, but nobody has pointed out that we do not own the social media. We don't own, our profile. I don't want to get into intellectual property. That's a whole other,
podcast.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, that's a really good point. And then the algorithms, like if you post a video, if you stream a video on a platform, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, that platform may help that video rank higher than a video that you just posted yourself. Like if I were to just record a video and post it on YouTube or just post it on Facebook or post it on LinkedIn, it might not get the same engagement because that platform is not going to be kind of pushing it in front of people. Is that correct?
That's very accurate. And it's one of the biggest things that, that's why I said the same thing about, Google, why Google is trying to help you find what you can as quickly as possible. Facebook wants you to spend time natively on its platform. There's business reasons for them. You can literally buy their stock. So understanding that is extremely important for people that are trying to increase their reach and really trying to get their name out there. If you take a video, you shoot your video, you upload it to YouTube, you take that link and you put it from YouTube into Facebook, it is not going to perform as well as if you literally upload that video through Facebook. So understanding that just shows you a little bit about why you want to try to have as much, and I hate to say control, but you really want to have as much direct interaction as you can on platforms that you quote unquote own, because that gives you the opportunity really to, whether it's TikTok today, Instagram tomorrow, or it's back to Facebook a week later, you have that kind of different or multi-pronged approach in how you can connect and engage with people.
Okay. Yeah, well, those are some really good points. I'm glad we're talking about this. I also wanted to say, if anybody's joining this late, feel free to type a question into the comments, because Gresham covered so much information. I mean, we could just talk all day, but we won't. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in there. There is a slight delay, so if we don't get your question right away, but I'm going to keep asking questions, actually, until you tell me to stop, Gresham. I mean, you touched on a lot of different things, right? So there's the social media component, there's your website, and then within the website, there's the SEO. And then there's all sorts of other different things that you can do to try. Is it really to drive traffic back to your website, or just to get your name out there? A podcast, a blog, all that different stuff that you mentioned.
Yeah, you can definitely do it for a lot of different ways. I think that's the gift and the curse of digital marketing, is there's not necessarily one way that you can do it. But again, that's why I said those three questions in the very beginning are so important, because when you understand exactly what success is, then you know exactly how to execute, and you know exactly what you want the social media platforms to do, and how you can kind of leverage them as much as possible. So, for example, if somebody is writing a book and they know that they want to get their book out there, and largely because they want to do or incorporate speaking and consulting maybe into their overall products and services that they're providing, you're maybe going to have a different way that you approach your marketing. Maybe you're going to try to be on more podcasts. Maybe you're going to share out those podcasts. You're going to use maybe Facebook ads to share out your podcast even more, so that people can learn more about what it is that you do. But that's because your goal is not necessarily to drive direct clients and customers, but it's more awareness, it's more visibility, it's more, hey, I am a speaker, I'm a trainer, so I would love to come to your organization and speak on that behalf. So it's so important to kind of understand that, because you can go on podcasts for a completely different reason and be a speaker and trainer and hope to drive people to your site to set up a free consultation. That's completely different. So really understanding the nuances of what you're trying to do and what success looks like is so important, because the activities can be the same, but the desired results and the goals can be completely different in how you execute that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually a really good point, and I'm really glad that you put it that way, because you might think to yourself, I don't want to pay for a Facebook ad, or I don't want to, pay for this or to get boosted here or there. But if you have a specific goal, to promote your book or to get word out about something or some promotion or some big event you have, coming up. And if you already know that's your goal and you're going on a bunch of podcasts or a bunch of news shows, whatever it is, then maybe you will want to pay to boost that, because you're trying, like, you have a very specific goal of what you're trying to do. It's not just paying money to get my name out there. It's paying money so people will buy my book or whatever the situation is.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It makes so much sense. There's so many different ways to definitely do that. And I think too, as a podcaster, it's, you always pay attention to the podcasts that perform the best. So if you're trying to, maybe repitch that person on being a podcast, or even if you're trying to pitch the next podcaster, if you can say, hey, I was on this show and I got, this much, likes and shares and so on and so forth, that's going to be very interesting for a podcaster to see and to understand that not only are they having you on the show, they're going to have a really phenomenal episode, but they're potentially also going to increase their reach by just having you on the show. So it's also thinking about what they have in to create as many win-win situations as you can.
Awesome. That's a really good thing to think about. I mean, it sounds so simple, but I didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that you think we could, or not we, you could tell everybody, just to kind of sum up? I guess what I'm really getting at, not really sum up, but there's so much you can do, and we already talked several times about having a focus and a target audience or a target goal. Now, how would you suggest people start if they cannot figure out who their target audience is? I think you called it paralysis by analysis. Mm-hmm. How do you get over that fear, which I think a lot of us I need to get better about asking questions quicker. But I guess what my point is, you don't know what to do, and you don't know how to start, but you got to get your name out there. So what would you suggest people do first, just to start doing something?
Just if we're talking about social media, literally just go and download the app of whatever you want to try out and do the thing that you like doing the most. So if you spend a lot of time on Instagram and you're guilting yourself because you're spending so much time on Instagram, open up that business account. It's usually, if you already have it open, it's probably just opening up a tab and go ahead and start and get started and get your hands kind of dirty, so to speak. Because I think digital marketing, generally speaking, is still fairly new, and there's a lot of evolution that's happening there, and there's a lot of opportunity, I think, if you are able to kind of look at things in a different and unique way. But I'm a really action-oriented person, and I think that if you know that you are one of the people that might, have that paralysis by analysis, I think that's the best way to do it, is just kind of get your hands dirty. And then the biggest thing I would say is make sure that on social media platforms is not as big a deal, but like on your website, for example, you have analytics kind of built into your website. And the reason that I say that is because when you're trying to figure out if this is working or not working, you're doing it based off of, whether or not you have clients, come through the door, which is a way you might, determine success, but you're also able to look at the data and see all of that information. So make sure you understand that one of the biggest benefits of digital marketing is that you have so much data and information that you can get from your activity to determine whether or not it's success. And I would say too that just take that action and understand that sometimes if you don't reach success, it's not because you're on the social media platform, you're doing everything wrong, you need to completely change everything that you're doing. Often it could be an image that gets a better, drive of results or clicks, or it could be a copy or message or something along those lines. So understand that you have the ability to be able to kind of do things like A/B tests, which are just basically changing one variable so that you can see if there is an improvement from one thing that you do to another. So just understand and be and again have fun with it as far as like how you can reach your way to success by continuing to kind of test out things.
Okay, that's some really good advice, and I know what Gresham is talking about. If you guys have not looked at the analytics, just for example, for Facebook, you can go onto your page, or I can go onto my business page, and I can see how many people watch this video. I can see how many people shared the video, and any of my posts, on my personal page or my Facebook page, and all the platforms I'm sure have the similar capabilities. And I know websites do too. I'm guilty about not checking that as much as I should. But I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and it makes me really want to go back and do that, because I don't want to, keep spinning my wheels. Looking at the analytics, it's just good because it either confirms that what you're doing is working, or it's showing you that you're, spending time on something maybe that's not. And time is very valuable. So if your time could be better spent somewhere else. And then, like you also said, it might not even be that it's that one particular thing you're doing. You mentioned a message, right? When you say message, do you mean kind of the branding, the way that you put your message out there?
Yeah, and it could be that, it could be the copy, it could be so many different things. If we're talking about just to say like a Facebook post,
Mm-hmm.
you could have and test out two different messages. One may resonate more than another, and that's really, I think, one of the things that a lot of successful, especially in IT and companies like that, is they will basically just get started. There's a book called The Lean Startup, and the idea is that you create what's called an MVP, and the MVP is a minimum viable product. So you don't create, so many people spend so much time in terms of building everything to have it be a finished product, when in reality, their clients that they thought would want it don't actually want it. So what you do is you build an MVP, and you basically use the data to continue to kind of improve what it is that you have. So the MVP can be as simple as a questionnaire. You start out with a questionnaire of this idea that you have, and then you get that data, and then you start to create it, and then you create it as simple as possible. There's even a quote that says, if by the time you've launched, people aren't laughing at what it is that you've created, then you've launched too late. So you spent so much time perfecting it, making it, the best thing ever, that you're not really leaning on the data, really leaning on the feedback that you get, rather than on sometimes the vision that we have, or what we're trying to create, which, you want to have a balance of both. But again, getting that feedback is huge.
Mm-hmm. So I get the main points that I'm taking from this are, don't do everything. Pick something to focus on, or pick something that you like if you can't figure out what to focus on. Experiment if you can't figure it out. Well, the first thing I should have said is figure out who your ideal market is. But if you can't, just pick something, one or two things, and try them, see how they work. Look at the analytics, because, we don't they're only 24 hours in a day, and we only have so much money. So we want to see if these things that we're doing are working. Being willing to change, and add cinnamon to the recipe, I guess. Mm-hmm. Any other big points I'm missing?
No, I mean, I think last thing I would say, just do it, just get your hands dirty and just go about doing it. I think that's the biggest thing, but I think you nailed everything.
Okay. Well, before you go, Gresham, I just want to tell everybody that I'm going to ask you to put your contact information in the comments. And I don't know if you talked about it in the beginning, but you have so many resources on your website. So just before you go, quickly, can you tell everybody about the different podcasts and the blogs and the course that you offer for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have and work on, different things, and I have everything at the site iamgresh.com, and I'll definitely put that in the comments as well too. But as I talk about, creating your own media company, central to that is really providing resources for the target clients that you're trying to work with. I work with entrepreneurs and business owners, so I try to provide resources for business owners. So if you go to a site, it's cbnation.co. You'll see there's blog posts, there's podcasts, and there's video content, all either giving you the opportunity to hear a really phenomenal story from an entrepreneur, business owner, hear what they're doing, and or it could be a resource that really can make you more effective and efficient. So that could be everything from how to leverage Facebook Lives and to be more effective, what exactly SEO is. And it's all created, and it's more of a platform because I have guest posts, I have email interviews, there's podcast interviews. So it's all from people that are experts like, Gene, at what it is that they do, letting you know how you can level up and be better. So I think that's one of the most exciting things that I'm able to do is provide value and hopefully also help out a lot of these entrepreneurs and business owners.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's so awesome. There are so many good resources on your site. I've been there before, and it's actually one of the things on my to-do list to check out the new things that are coming out. All the podcasts are great. And Gresham keeps the podcast short too. I think they're all about 16 minutes, and even specific questions. And even though there are specific questions, every entrepreneur that's on there has different answers, and I learned so much. I could just advertise for Gresham all day. You guys have to go and check out the website. Yeah, I mean, I could keep going, Gresham, but we need to kind of wrap things up. So is there anything else you want to say to everybody before we take off for the day?
No, that's it, Gene. I appreciate you so much for being on my show. I appreciate you so much for giving me this opportunity. So thank you for, all the awesome things you're doing. And I think you're the definition of being a media company. So I appreciate you for doing that too.
Well, thank you. But I should probably check out that post that you have about leveraging a Facebook Live and hope that I'm doing everything right. All right. Well, I will talk to you later, Gresham.
Bye.
Bye.